Welcome, Grade 9 students, to this explainer. Today, we're diving straight into General English 9, Unit 3, Lesson 4. We've got a really great double feature today. We are going to learn how to write concisely by using compound predicates and how to bring immediacy to our writing by using an effective verb tense. Now, I know that sounds like a bit of a mouthful, but I promise you, mastering these two specific tools, it's an absolute game changer. Whether you're drafting a suspenseful narrative or putting together a complex literary analysis, these techniques are going to become your new secret weapons.
Okay, let's take a super quick look at our roadmap. We'll hit our objectives, break down compound predicates and verb tenses, look at some real worked examples, clear up a common misconception, do a quick knowledge check, and then wrap it all up. So here is our main objective for today: mastering conciseness and immediacy. We're equipping you with two highly transferable skills to instantly elevate your writing.
Let's kick things off with our very first concept. This is literally the key to tightening up wordy, clunky sentences.
Okay, so what exactly is a compound predicate? Basically, it's when you have two or more connected verbs that act upon the exact same subject. Think of it like this. You've got a single doer in your sentence, but they're performing multiple actions. This acts as the structural glue that makes your writing so much more concise and highly readable, mostly because it completely stops you from sounding like a broken record, constantly repeating the subject over and over.
So how do we actually build or find one of these in the wild? It's a simple three-step formula. First, you just isolate your subject. Second, you ask, what? Like, what action is this subject actually performing? And finally, you look for those connecting words, usually and, or but, that link those multiple verbs together under that one single subject. Pretty straightforward, right?
All right, shifting gears here. We've tightened up our sentences. Now let's talk about verb tenses and immediacy.
Our source material defines immediacy as the feeling that a story or a textual event is happening right now. It's that magnetic pull that completely grabs your reader's attention. Whether you're writing a fast-paced modern thriller or analyzing a 17th century poem, immediacy shrinks the distance between the reader and the text. It literally makes your reader feel like they're standing right there in the room with the characters.
Now, what's really fascinating is how we achieve this. In narrative writing, authors love using the present tense because it creates this cinematic, high immediacy, right now effect. But as our sources point out, past tense is actually the most natural traditional tense for storytelling. So here's the secret. If you combine the past tense with a limited third-person point of view, you can achieve that exact same gripping narrative present feel just by closing the psychological distance to your characters.
But wait, what about when you switch from writing a story to writing a literary analysis? Say you're discussing John Milton's pastoral elegy Lycidas. Well, there's a strict rule here. We use the past tense for the author's historical life, the facts, but we absolutely must use the literary present tense for the actions actually happening inside the text. You treat the poem's internal events as if they are continually happening right now, today.
Concepts are great and all, but let's actually look at some direct, source-supported, worked examples to see these rules in action. Take a look at the text on the left, straight from our grammar sources. Rob studied the textbook for the test. Then he practiced the vocabulary for the test. After practicing the vocabulary, he memorized the poem. I mean, it's repetitive, right? It drags. Now look at the right. Rob studied the textbook, practiced the vocabulary, and memorized the poem. Boom. By combining studied, practiced, and memorized into a single compound predicate for our guy Rob, the passage is instantly concise and punchy.
Jumping back to immediacy and narrative writing, check out these two thriller examples. On the left, we have first-person present. I take a shortcut down a dark alley, feel a gun against my spine. Incredible immediacy, right? But on the right, look at the third-person past. He took a shortcut down a dark alley, felt a gun against his spine. Because it's a tight, limited perspective, you still totally feel that intense narrative present. You have real options here when pacing your stories.
And for literary analysis, here's an example based on Milton's Lycidas. Notice the verb choices mourns and questions. By using the literary present tense, this sentence takes what could have been a really dry, passive, historical report about a 400-year-old poem and turns it into an active, immediate engagement with the text. The poem is treated as something alive.
Okay, hold on a second. Let's pause for a misconception check, because this is a trap a lot of students fall into.
Milton is 29 years old when he writes Lycidas. As our academic source makes very clear, this is a major misconception. Why? because it fails to separate historical fact from textual events. Milton's age is a historical, biographical fact, so it demands the past tense. He was 29. It's only the poem's internal events that get the literary present.
All right, you've seen the examples, you know the rules. Let's do a brief formative check. It's your turn to apply this.
Look at these 3 disjointed sentences from our source worksheets. Debbie walked into the room, next she sat down in the chair, and she heaved a sigh of relief. Kinda clunky, right? How would you use a compound predicate to tighten these up into one single flowing sentence? Take a mental second to construct your answer.
Did you get it? By isolating Debbie as the single subject and just linking her actions, walked, sat, and heaved, using the word and, you get perfect conciseness. Debbie walked into the room, sat down in the chair, and heaved a sigh of relief. It just flows beautifully.
Well, we've covered a ton of ground today, moving all the way from sentence-level mechanics to broad narrative pacing. Let's do a quick recap.
Here are your 3 big takeaways. First, use compound predicates to cut the clutter. Second, choose your verb tenses deliberately to create narrative suspense, whether that's trendy present tense or traditional past tense with a limited point of view. And third, always use the literary present to make your textual analysis active, making sure you separate historical facts from the living text.
Keep these 2 incredibly powerful tools in your writer's toolkit. So the next time you sit down to draft a story or analyze a poem, I want you to ask yourself, how are you going to use a compound predicate to tighten your flow? And what verb tense will you choose to pull your reader right into the immediacy of the moment? Thanks for joining me on this explainer, and keep refining those writing skills.